I'm probably going to jail for this. I don't care. I've stayed quiet long enough.
So Brett Fairley, who went viral for his insane paternity fraud story recently, was just arrested and made to take down all of his videos.
That's insane.
It's a lot, but I'll give you the quick breakdown.
Yeah, guys, if you haven't seen my full 4-part series about this story, you have to go check it out. I'll leave a link to the full playlist, so you'll go from part 1 to part 4. I'll leave a link in the pinned comments and in the description down below. You got to see this story to get the full detail and to really understand how insane it is. The dude starts off part 1 setting down a big binder, and in that binder he has pictures, he has text messages, he has all the receipts he needs, he links everything together, and he proves that he's not the father of the child and presents it to a judge. He literally starts off the first part by saying, and he sets the binder down, after he sets the binder down, he says, I'll probably end up going to jail for this. And we haven't gotten an update on his story in the last couple of weeks, and I was wondering why, but I guess it's because the dude got arrested for telling his side of the story because he had a gag order under the court. The judge said that he wasn't able to clear his name and talk about his side of the story. But let's get into what she's talking about, though.
So Brett is a young man who ends up getting approached by an older woman named Maria who asks him to be her sperm donor. She convinces him with paperwork and everything that it's all on the up and up. He's not going to be legally responsible for this child. Despite this arrangement and them only having a one-night stand to complete this arrangement, Maria ends up finding Brett's mom and grandma and tells them that she's pregnant with Brett's child. Insane. And convinces them that he should be involved with the pregnancy. His mom and grandma...
Insane. And part of the way she convinced them is by saying that she was alone. So she said that she wanted to get pregnant by herself while knowing that she had no support system. And the reason why she probably doesn't have a support system is because she's pushed all of her biological family away because she's insane. And this is what I tell dudes, male losers, we all have the stereotypical vision of them. It is the guy who sits in his room all day in his mom's basement, plays video games. That's like the stereotypical male loser. But oftentimes when it comes to female losers, they get pushed out into the world, and because there's always some guy that they can mooch off of and live off of, you can't really tell sometimes that they're female losers, but oftentimes you could tell by the amount of relationships that they're able to keep and maintain in their lives. And for this woman in particular, when she got into the hospital and she was getting ready to have the kid, she was basically saying, hey, I need you guys to come because nobody else in my life wants to support me having this kid. So his family went down and she convinced him to sign the birth certificate. And that's how he really got into all of this stuff.
Now want to be a part of the baby's life, so they convince Brett that he should be too. So he agrees to start paying child support. But after a little over a year, having paid now $55,000 to this woman for this baby, he ends up taking a paternity test and finds out the baby isn't even his.
Crazy.
Not only that, but Brett finds out that Maria likely knew who the real father was this entire time, but refused to disclose it because the real father was married to another woman at the time.
Yeah. And in the state that they were in, I believe it was Mississippi, the kicker was, and you guys got to go watch the full part to the story. The kicker was that if the wife found out that the man was cheating on her in the state of Mississippi, she could be granted the full business. So she could get pretty much full ownership of the business that they own together. So that was the kicker. The wife could have sued the husband if she found out that he was sleeping with another woman in the state of Mississippi and took everything in terms of the partnership of the business. So it was the Maria girl who they're talking about that had the kid and put it on Brett. She was trying to keep it all under wraps so that the man wouldn't lose his business to his wife.
Oops! So Brett goes to court for paternity fraud, asking for his name to be taken off the birth certificate, child support to end, and to be paid back for all the child support he did pay. In a kind of surprising victory, the courts actually do agree to end Brett's parental and child support obligations, but they don't make Maria pay him back, and I'm pretty sure his name is still on the birth certificate. The judge also signs a mutual restraining order for the both of them, meaning that neither of them can ever talk about this case again. Basically a gag order. But according to Brett, Maria broke this order almost immediately by contacting his family, telling them that he's a deadbeat who abandoned his child. So Brett decides that he too is going to defy the order.
After he literally proved with DNA evidence that it is not his child multiple times through the court system so that he didn't have to pay any more child support. And that's why I tell dudes, as soon as you sign that birth certificate, you might not be biologically the father, but you are now the legal father. And it's really hard to not be the legal father anymore, trust me. And if a woman wants to drag it out in court, she can, and there is absolutely no penalty to it. Dudes will say, oh, you can sue for paternity fraud. But oftentimes in those cases, and lawyers will tell you this, once you pursue paternity fraud, oftentimes because it's a single mother and she doesn't know who the dad is, you're not getting any money from it. And the state isn't going to separate the mom from the child by locking her up and putting her in jail. So oftentimes it comes to no result. And even in this story, you can see he didn't get any result from suing her, other than the fact that he got off child support, which is nice. But he's also, if you listen to the story, he had also given her $55,000 over the first 2 years of the child's life and let her stay in one of his Airbnbs for 2 years rent-free, and he'll never see any of that again. So that's a loss of investment.
Order and clear his name. And that's when he made a multi-part series detailing all the lies, how he got played, and also his own mistakes along the way to help educate other men. I actually remember one interview where Brett was asked what he would tell his younger self if he could, and he said that if he had ever heard a story even remotely similar to what he went through, he would have never been in that situation. So his story does have the ability to prevent this from happening. But obviously the courts don't want this story out there. Why? It just makes you wonder, especially when you consider that in other countries like France, it's actually illegal for men to perform paternity tests on their kids without the mother's permission.
They don't want men to hear stories like this because they understand if men started to realize how ridiculous the family court system is, men would start to rebel against it. The family court system gives women almost the exclusive ability to extort men at any cost just because they're resentful, and men are the ones who uphold this system. And if enough men started to realize how fragile it actually is and how it is used as the enforcement arm for women to take advantage of men and extort men, men would start to revolt. That's probably why they don't want these stories with these gag orders to get out. Because men would see the level of injustice there is in the family court system. Oftentimes, as a man, you are guilty until proven innocent. That's how they treat you in family court system, and it's usually just comes from the word of a woman. You have to bring like actual DNA evidence, and the only thing that you're going against is the word of a woman. And oftentimes, you'll have to prove your innocence once or twice or three times just to get any result.
And because, in their words, it would destabilize the community.
Yeah, there you go.
And honestly, this whole concept.
Wait, let's rewind it a little bit. Let's rewind it a little bit.
It's also crazy to me because it's like countries like France. It's actually illegal for men to perform paternity tests on their kids without the mother's permission because, in their words, it would destabilize the community. And honestly, this whole concept that you
actually
have to...
in Jamaica too, the paternity fraud was so bad in Jamaica that the men were starting to, like, the men's rights activists in Jamaica wanted their president, the president of Jamaica or the prime minister, I'm not sure what they have, the leader of Jamaica at the time, I believe it's a president. They wanted him to make it so that DNA testing was mandatory, and he said, or there was a specialist that he talked to about this situation, and the specialist told him, and this is in a news report somewhere, I might find it and post it up on the screen so you guys can see it. He said basically the amount of femicide that would come from you making DNA tests mandatory wouldn't be worth this destabilization basically to Jamaica as a country. There's so much paternity fraud in Jamaica that even the experts said that you can't get mandatory DNA tests because men would start to kill women out of resentment. It's crazy.
To prove paternity fraud is also crazy to me because it's like, did she say the kid was his? Did the DNA test say that it isn't? Seems to me that there was pretty clear deception involved. But we do have to learn from this, and honestly, this is why a lot of guys are very hesitant to sign anything until they get that DNA test. This is also why I think it's really important for women to stop taking DNA tests so personally and making it this big relationship-ending deal. You should want to be able to offer your man that reassurance, and you should also want that reassurance yourself. After all, hospital switch-ups do happen to women too. They can shut him up, but they can't shut us all up, and men need to hear this stuff. Yeah. Men deserve to know if their kid is theirs or not without being shamed for wanting to know that.
In addition to this story, his wife, Brett, or not Brett's wife, the girlfriend, Brett's new girlfriend is actually a TikToker named Nurse Haley or Holly, and she goes a little bit in depth into the situation. And let's go right into that video where she's talking about the situation a little bit more.
I met Brett in March of a year ago. He had a daughter, and he had told me that it was like this really kind of unconventional situation where he had agreed to get someone pregnant as like kind of a sperm donor situation, but that he wouldn't have to be involved. And then his parents found out after she was pregnant and basically were like, you need to be involved.
Yeah,
no,
great
absolutely
parents.
not.
Those are
You're
good
not
parents.
doing that. This baby's not going to grow up without that. No. And so he shows up to the birth and he decides that he's going to be a parent.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this is with a woman who he had like a one night fling with.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of TikTok gets really confused. So they had a one night stand in the past. Right. And then she was like, hanging out. I'm not going to slander her. She's hanging out with a lot of his friends. So she was kind of still around, but he wasn't doing anything. And then she approached him about the sperm donor situation, and they agreed, and they hung out for a few weeks. And a lot of people have said, oh, well, there's like pictures of them together. And so it wasn't just a one night stand. And I'm like, y'all, this isn't The Handmaid's Tale. How do y'all think she got pregnant? Like, I don't know how to explain this to y'all, but I don't want to have to like say that. But like, yes, they hung out. Like, how do y'all think a baby is made? I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, guys, this is let this story be a warning. Before you start dealing with women, you have to ask yourself, is this woman a loser? If this woman was a man, would she be a loser? A woman start to ask you for stuff and then claiming that you broke because you don't want to give her the money for what she asking for. If that was a man, would that be considered a loser? Guys have to start asking themselves, are they dealing with women who are losers? And if you're dealing with a woman that you don't respect, who you think is a loser, then maybe you shouldn't be dealing with that woman. You got to be careful about the women that you're dealing with, because women have the authority of the state and the power of the state to come after you just because they're resentful or just because they want to take advantage of you. Pretty much any reason a woman could want to take something from you via the state, they're going to be able to come and collect whatever you have. That's why if you're a man and you see any value within yourself, or you see any potential that you'll have any value, you have to be very careful of the women that you deal with. Because you'd hate to deal with a woman like this. Trust me. Ruin your life forever. Now this man is in jail. But it's okay though, because that's why we have spaces like this right here. When the court system says that we'll put gag orders on men so that they can't tell their stories, while the woman that destroys their life is able to go slander them and tell any rumor that they want to destroy the man's image, you have spaces like the red pill space, the manosphere, where we have these conversations, where we talk about women, not to demonize them, but also to say that women aren't just these angels that are innocent. Some of them act in their own self-interest, and you can't be taken advantage of as a man. That's why these spaces exist, and this is why people will try to shame you out of coming to these spaces or listening to some of the things that we say and that we talk about. It makes the world uncomfortable that men are able to get together and have conversations about our issues, because it makes us harder to exploit. It makes us open our eyes and realize how we've been exploited. It makes us open our eyes and realize how our governments want us to work and take on all the responsibility of society, but then allow women to be able to destroy you and use the state to do so just because they're resentful. Right now, we're in an information war, and we're winning it. We are winning it. It's just going to take time. It's going to take time. Once the boomers are out, the next generation of people men that are going to come into power are going to be men that had to deal with the consequences of a lot of this stuff, and they're going to be the men who have seen the family court system destroy men. They're going to be the men who have seen women say that they want equality, but yet a lot of these old systems like the family court system still heavily benefit and lean in the benefit of women. The next group of men that come into power are going to be men that understand these situations, because we're allowed to have these conversations. Let me know in the comments below if this video was a W or L, and give me the HBO special. That's a Help Brother Out special. Hit the like and the subscribe button for more content. Till next time.